Fallout is a franchise that explores the aftermath of total atomic annihilation. But it does beg the question, how do other parts of the world fare during the end of the world? With that question in mind, let's take a journey over to Russia, where the denizens have retreated into the metro tunnels and hope is an ever-dwindling dream, only found in storybooks. But to add a bit of spice to the mix, I'm gonna try and survive the harsh realities of a nuclear winter without killing anything. So let's get into it and see just how intense the metro really is. We begin our story with our protagonist Artyom heading from the metro tunnels to the surface with a man named Miller, with supposedly the stake of the world on the line. Besides dropping us into one of the most hauntingly beautiful locations post-apocalyptia can bring, we're thrown headfirst into a tutorial of sorts, filled with gap jumping and even monsters to kill. But don't get too excited, as instead of fighting anything, I instead showed Miller how fast I could run in my new shoes, and only after I finished did I see him do a sweet roll and finish off the last enemy. With the population of Nosilis reduced, Miller and our team continue to rendezvous with other soldiers, except this may as well have been an ambush, because Nosilis very rarely travel alone. Next thing I knew, everyone was shooting everything, and now it was my turn to do a sick roll. But it was clear we were losing when a bitch came and flipped my favorite Hot Wheels over, and then tried to eat me. But before Artyom met the big one in the sky, it was time for the time rewind. Waking up 8 days prior to being ripped apart, I was greeted and told that a friend of mine was coming to visit with news from the other stations. And seeing how the events of this game go, I think these guys could have gathered the situation was dire without it. I mean, I already walked past a ward full of dying or dead bodies. How much worse could it really get? But pushing that to the side for now, here comes Hunter. Hunter is a part of a ranger faction based out of Polis Station with the goal of helping out as much of the metro as they can. But almost as soon as this guy comes in, he starts talking about Dark Ones, who I guess are part of the monsters outside? But he should have talked quieter as the Nosilis from outside rolled up to check the vibe. Between Hunter and what I'm assuming is Artyom's stepfather, I raced around to marvel at how useful NPCs are in this game. Fallout 4 could have learned so much from this game. With the Nosilis stomped out, it turns out that the Dark Ones Hunter spoke of were more of a telepathic watch me bend this spoon kind of enemy. And while we were petting dogs with bullets, the Dark Ones attacked the rear and completely cleaned house. Hunter said he was going to go off on some kind of one-man hero mission, but gave me his necklace and told me to travel to Polis Station to get reinforcements in case he didn't return. And, long story short, he never came back. Artyom decided to join a caravan heading to Riga Station and then travel by foot from there. Hopping into the railcar with the rest of the caravan, we had the titular, "Hey man, I'm heading out this way and only just got dropped off into the story to drive the car. I can tag along, right?" guy. I wonder if we'll get his backstory during this trip as well. Along the ride, a tunnel collapse causes us to take a detour, to which the leader of the caravan immediately starts complaining. Dude, roadworks are an almost constant thing around where I live. Detours happen all the time. But considering my gun that I would never use automatically equipped itself, maybe he had a reason for not wanting to take the detour. Almost a whole 45 seconds later, we got our brains melted by a glowing ball of light, sending me into the subconsciousness of my mind, where I found Hunter surprisingly skipping out on his rent payments. But this is where we also got the first glimpse of a Dark One. Not canonically, but that's our team's fault for not informing us earlier. However, after that little nap, our railcar gets attacked and our newbie gets pulled into the darkness, and disaster strikes. The railcar gets attacked by Nosilises, but the damage done to Artyom doesn't seem to care what his health is actually at, but instead goes off a fixed damage threshold for the cart itself. So you can heal, but it doesn't seem to do anything. With that being said, this is the first part of the game where you are forced to kill for survival. There's no way to shoot them off the car without killing them. There's no way to knife them off the car without killing them. And even after the first one, you then have to do a quick time event, and then have to kill 4 more of them. Now, if you chalk this up to the game forcing my hand, then the challenge is still good. But if you don't, then 30 minutes is where your run dies. Alright, so we have to at least kill 1 Nosilis. Okay, maybe 2. Well, alright, then we have to kill a couple of them. I tried to just wait out the time, but no. This seems to be scripted to where you have to kill a certain amount of enemies to actually progress. Only to get rewarded with being thrown off the rail car, then running straight at my homies while they tried to shoot behind me to finish the level. After the debacle that was that rail car, we made it to Riga Station, where the caravan had a nice relaxing... Oh, sorry, what was that? Anyways, we were having a nice farewell chat. And as soon as I got up, I paid a kid to lead me in a circle to meet with a man named Bourbon. The homie needed to get to another station, but since we had to pass through some cursed tunnels full of spooky things, he wanted to take our team along since it didn't seem to have any effect on him. All in exchange for his AK, which I surprisingly would get a lot of mileage out of later. We traveled a bit through metro tunnels until we somehow ended up on bandit territory, and this started the first stealth section of the game. To avoid a firefight, I had to creep through the shadows, smacking and punching every poor soul that decided to work guard duty that night. Except this guy. For some reason, Artyom punched him twice. That was personal. Moving through the area, I made sure to leave no one up, including this guy that I woke up just to put back to sleep. And you want to know what I got for a successful infiltration mission? I got to watch Bourbon fight tons and tons of Nosiluses all by himself, because even one companion is enough to thin out the population of monsters in the metro. Nick Valentine, get your shit together! Since I couldn't help him kill anything, I tried to be useful by holding a light for him so he could see, but further in, we both started tripping balls from the fumes in the sewers, and now I was trying to run to a gate that he struggled to open, while he talked about lubing up the door he called his mistress while he complimented its singing. Look, homie, I know things get lonely in the metro, but maybe leave them doors alone. Back to holding my light like a scared and confused child, we made it to the dry station, only to get attacked by more Nosiluses while the door opened with the urgency of a crippled snail. However, instead of using Bourbon as my sole knight in shining armor, some of the dry station guards also helped out this time, thinning out the monsters and getting a safe passage inside. It was clear Bourbon was in a bit of a pickle here, as everyone seemed to know him, but not in the positive kind of way. Somehow we weren't murdered at the door, and I was allowed to head inside the station and stock up on filters and medkits. But as cozy as it was here, we were only stopping by as our next stop was the surface. But unlike in Fallout, where I'm greeted by a city that resembles some sort of livable society, the only occupants on the surface were monsters and people crazy enough to travel up there as long as they had enough gas mask filters. They don't call it the Dead City for nothing. We got separated almost immediately, and now I had to travel through the cities alone, all while having my brain get assaulted by Dark Ones and them showing me how great things used to be when Magic the Gathering didn't cost a house payment to stay competitive. And then Artyom got forced into another situation where by using a door, he had to give an English welcome to a lost cuddle dog. More flashbacks occurred, and all I could do was offer the kids a light in these trying times, before being returned to reality and being reunited with my Russian Disney princess, and watching him as he defended me with his trusty shotgun. Eventually a fence broke, allowing us to make a run for it, ending the level. Now moving into the next level, we open up with Artyom and Bourbon crawling through some rafters, only for Bourbon to check the area outside and get caught like a dummy, leaving Artyom alone and having to sneak through the bandit camp. And by sneak, I mean I started sneaking only to trigger a tripwire that alerted the entire area. In the struggle of having to fight for my life, I witnessed a guard having what appeared to be a heart attack, but after some shots that I definitely deserved, I turned back and saw he had finally passed away. Rest in peace, little random metro guard, I hardly knew ya. Making it through a transition door to that next area, I once again botched a stealth section and had to resort to very aggressive 9-eye cuddles. But no one died. So what kind of reward do you think I get for this? Yes, you guessed it, my Russian Disney princess being blasted before my very eyes. Only for a new princess to take his place. Bourbon? Who's that? I'm with Khan now. Khan can see weird stuff like Artyom, basically anomalies in the metro. Except where one sees goofy long-arm aliens, the other sees ghosts. Ghosts of kids, adults, monsters, and even trains for some reason? Khan and I traveled through the tunnels on our way to Polis, but got sidetracked at another station on the verge of being wiped out. Khan said that we had to help them, and by we, I mean I had to go and retrieve the leftovers of some deceased demolition squad, and then run all the way to some far-off tunnel, all while being chased by Nosiluses and having to hold on to my map for dear life. Shouldn't be too hard, right? Oh, what's that? I did it? Oh, well, would you look at that? With the job well done, Khan told me I had to head on alone and to be careful, for the road ahead was going to be rough. Mainly because I had to deal with redline communists and the Fourth Reich fascists. And oh boy, was he telling the truth. But not this part. This part's cool. I headed towards the armory station in search of a blacksmith, but got sidetracked at a certain voice of someone who definitely sounds like Pavel from Metro Last Light. And honestly, from the factions at play here, I wouldn't be surprised if that was him. But, foreshadowing aside, I stumbled upon one of those wild Hollywood parties and was now running for my life only to get picked up by the very man I was looking for. Andrew informed me that a train would be leaving the communist station soon and I would need to be a stowaway. Only problem is that same train would be heading into the front lines between the Reich and the Red Line, which of course sounds like everyone's holiday destination. Now comes the hardest mission in the entire run. Frontline. I started off by trying to head to the back of the tunnels for some good loot my chat told me about during the live stream, but besides not finding the loot, I found an NPC that I couldn't knock out. Possibly due to the body armor they were rocking, but for some reason he was the most jumpy enemy I've ever seen, constantly checking his right to left like he was gonna cross the street, and after not finding anything to stop his Sunday stroll, he just walked off. Seeing him more confused than I thought was even possible, I decided to leave the guard alone in the tunnel while I headed off for the exit. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but that enemy I was making fun of 2 seconds ago was actually going to cause so many issues during the rest of this mission, it wasn't even funny. Not him specifically, but the 6 or more of those guys just up the road. Oh, and I managed to find the night vision goggles I was looking for. Now, this mission is actually pretty straightforward. Sneak past the Red Line, creep around No Man's Land, and then sneak past the Reich. But do be mindful of the fact that there are 12 or so guys on either side of that No Man's Land. On the Red Line side, you can do a very careful sneak around and take out almost all of the guards, including the guy operating the MG on the platform, and it took lots of trial and error, but it is completely possible, because running through this section is a guaranteed death wish. Mainly from those heavily armored heavy gun carrying jerks. But the real trick is once you make it to No Man's Land, you're really in for it now. I tried rushing through, which I said was a death wish 2 seconds ago, but I tried rushing through the bottom level, only to realize that you had to run back up anyway, so it was kind of a moot point. But there was one strat I was hoping that would actually pay off. If I fell onto the bottom platform, I could hopefully sneak by and slip out the backside. Except, I don't really know what happened here, so I'm just gonna play the whole clip for you because frankly, I'm not sure what actually happened. Now, I'm not complaining, and I even have the achievement to prove it, but I don't understand where everyone went or why they were so perfectly spaced out. But hey, A win is a win no matter how small. After over an hour of frustration, I was taking this all the way home, no matter how many bullets I was taking with me. But the Reich would have the last laugh. Now having our team facing execution, the Reich soldiers tried to figure out the best Fortnite dance to bust out. But since they were taking forever, the Metro Rangers decided to game in them before they could flex on my free-to-play account. Knowing I was giving off main character vibes, the Rangers offered to help me get to Polis. But the only way to do that was to borrow one of the rail cars with a mounted machine gun. Because nothing gives the illusion of making it through a section without killing anyone than a vehicle with a mounted machine gun. And just as I suspected, the Reich soldiers saw right through our disguise. I did try not to shoot anything, but without the ability to use medkits and the death of me resulting in the death of the other characters via an explosion, this meant that yet again, I was forced to kill. Heaps of homies caught bullets. I mean, for Christ's sake, there was a part in the mission where it basically was open season for headshots. After making it out of the tunnel, I was able to travel forward with a ranger named Pavel, and being on foot meant that I could return to my normal scheduled— oh, never mind, that's the end of the mission. And now I'm on a moving train car again. Perfect. Let me guess, more kill sections? Actually, surprisingly, the first part of this mission could be gotten through with pure brute force and how to get confused. But the second part containing nothing but the silences. Once they got onto the rail car, it was back to the same one. Pavel got killed while falling into an explosion, and I rode the worst roller coaster ever. With nothing left to do, I walked through some sewer pipes until I got to the end of the mission. Making it to somewhere that looked like everywhere, I found another station being attacked by the silences. But where these guys were expecting a savior, I instead showed them how cool I looked while I ran absolute circles around them. I mean, listen to that cheering. They love it. During the running around, I got knocked out by a Jimmy Neutron brain blast, only to wake up and find the only remaining survivor asking me to help blast his mixtape across Russia. I figured if he got famous, maybe he could throw me a couple bands, so I decided to help him out. Along the way, I also found a child named Sasha, and if anyone saw my Frost run where I took children and turned them into mercenaries, you knew where this is going. But instead of putting him to work like I did the kids in Frost, I gave him a piggyback ride all the way home. It's the small things that you have to appreciate in this game, because the next level was the second hardest of the run. However, in testing during the live stream, I did find a decent strat that would definitely earn me a couple of deaths. This level starts out with you having to sneak past a group of Reich soldiers, but if you have a suppressor on one of your guns, you can take out the searchlight and run to this particular spot. You should be out of range of their visibility for the most part, but this causes the whole group to practically run past you to give you an easy way to the top. And now that you've made it to the main component of the level, you now have to scale a multi-floor building while taking out the guards. A running punch to the face will actually do just fine. With the guards sorted, you want to make it upstairs to the roof where a flying bitch will try to scare you away. But it's all for show, as you can run straight past it and start to blast your homie's mixtape. Now all you have to do is get to the end. And by getting to the end, I mean sneaking past another group of Reich soldiers while they deal with a flying rat. And as long as you do this in a very sneaky manner and don't just run in, this should be easy and definitely won't take an hour of your time. Now I had to take on Black Station, full of Redline members, and allegedly this was the hardest mission to get to without killing, so I began sneaking, only to blow my cover and take down two guards next to each other. With the station on full alert, I jumped onto a sewage pipe and walked right over top of them, making it to another tightly packed group of enemies. But a quick duck and weave made short work of the enemies, as our team could take down a grown man with one punch while being shot at from 4 different directions. Making it past them, I tried to sneak through some more sewage, only to set off a grenade. Yeah, our team's a bit of a tough guy. He eats all his radiated Wheaties in the morning. Except, Wheaties won't save you from getting your mind assaulted by long-legged pissed-off raisins. Poor our team was seeing the pearly gates before being ripped back to reality and finally arriving in Polis. Polis seemed like the center of everything, with a council chamber and tons of homies ready to make me wait until being called to whatever cutscene happened next. Here, our team was able to relay to the Ranger Commander Miller that his station was under attack by the Dark Ones and needed help. But after a council meeting lasting hours, now I was out here listening to Miller talk about how he didn't agree with the council's decision and would ultimately be leading his group of Rangers to a military base with rumors of capabilities to remove the Dark Ones from the equation permanently. Only problem is we had to actually go figure out where the hell it was. So we headed topside and headed towards a library that was thought to hold the location we were after. Except, this is another instance of kill or be killed. While waiting for backup, I got to watch an Osiris dance for me, only to be rudely interrupted by more trying to kill me. In this section, you have to kill a certain amount before the Rangers magically materialize. So if you're playing at home, here's another forced kill section. With the Rangers in tow, we pushed into the library before watching a rogue Chihuahua sweep in and absolutely body one of the Rangers. And because of putting his men first, Miller told Artyom he'd have to go into the further parts of the library alone while he tended to his homie's wounds. And not gonna lie, this section didn't go as I had previously planned. Heading into the next area harbored librarians, but not the hot ladies in those special movies you keep on your hard drive. No, these were giant monsters with such a lust for violence that if you looked at them for long enough without fighting, they would leave you alone out of pure pity. Except I must have done something wrong, because I spent the entire time running for my life and being manhandled by giant gorillas trying to find my library card. Eventually, I did manage to find a dossier containing the location of the military base. So I headed outside to rendezvous with the homies and head off for D6. The trip to D6 was just like any other, with Artyom getting his brain scrambled. But once he came to, Miller told him that his guys were gonna need some time to open a door that blocked their path. But like any bad omen, including a cutscene where you pick up a flamethrower, we all know where this is going. I tried to run around the rail car to avoid killing anything, but if the Osiris made it to the little platform I was standing on, I had no choice but to kill them. Yeah, you Ranger homies are really gonna have to step up your game here. Making it beyond the first door, the Rangers from this point forward really carried me. Every time we got into a new room, we were swarmed with Nosilises, but between the squad of Rangers shooting in every direction and somehow not hitting anyone with friendly fire, I may add, we made it out without losing anyone. Oh, except this guy. Moving deep into the base, our team was tasked with crawling under a door to see if he could get it to open on the other side. But the door decided it was against that plan, separating Artyom from the rest of the group and at the same time introducing a new enemy, a shadow spider. These little guys weren't so bad, as to make them leave you alone you just had to shine some light on them and run past them. I eventually met back up with the remainder of the Ranger squad as another homie got offed off screen. As we stood around waiting for the next story beat to occur, the only working train in the entire game rolled into the station. It appeared to be a direct line to D6. Our travels would soon be over. Making it inside D6, our team and the gang decided to try to power up everything with our main character flipping the multiple on-off switches. But how many Russians does it actually take to power a military establishment? 1. You just need a bit of percussive maintenance. After heading down the world's second worst roller coaster, we made it to the control room. This room would give the Rangers a way to remove the Dark Ones forever, by launching a guided missile system straight through their front doors. But just as we went to go get the targeting system, amoebas attacked us. This is basically Metro's version of the Gears of War ticker, except whereas these guys move slow, they make up for their lack of speed by spitting acid. Except these guys weren't even the real threat here. In Metro 2033, when you go into a hazardous area, you need to wear a gas mask to breathe properly. And you want to know what I ran out of in this section? That's right, gas mask filters. So now instead of just having to worry about the enemies, I now had to deprive our team of breathable air while trying to preserve a minute of filter time through what felt like a 10-minute long section. All while Miller continued to fight on and question why the hell our team was trying to edge himself in a time like this. Through the power of mind over matter, but nearly at the point of what happens in D6 stays in D6, our team didn't bust and made it to a control room, thankfully with more filters. Miller tried to boot up the targeting sequence, but a mass of livable tissue was blocking the reactor from powering up the machine. So I got tasked with heading up to restart the reactor by playing the most intense skill tester this side of Moscow. With the reactor reset, we headed topside to return back to the beginning of the game, and after watching my Hot Wheels get flipped for a second time, Miller and I headed towards a tower in the distance that would give us enough vantage to set up the targeting for the missiles. Along the way, I basically had to let the best Disney princess of all time defend me from all of the beasties trying to stack on me. Once inside the tower, Miller used his Russian intelligence to cut a rope, flying us straight to the top. But sadly, we still had a bit of climbing to do. However, intelligence comes with a cost. A bitch flew into the tower and attacked Miller, causing me once again to kill or risk letting the princess die. With Miller out of commission for the rest of the game, it was left to our team to scale the rest of the tower, with some super sick parkour skills as I made it to the top. I set up the targeting sequence, and now all I had to do was keep the signal active long enough for the missiles to make it to their destination. But the Dark Ones didn't want that, no, and if they didn't act now, their home would be destroyed, which meant it was time for one last attempt at mind games. I ran through some labyrinths, did some more parkour, and upon reaching a dead end, was revisited by Hunter, who told me if the Dark Ones were hostile, I would need to fight back. But what if they weren't? In one of the slowest walking sections I've seen in gaming, I watched as a Dark One scooted over to me only to kill me in one shot. It turns out that I would have to shoot this bastard after all. With the Dark One killed, I was thrown back into reality and took my place atop the tower to watch the fireworks, as I definitely killed way more than just the Dark Ones on the surface. And there you have it. No, you cannot get through Metro 2033 without killing, as there are a decent handful of forced sections. But I still had fun, and this game is a breath of fresh air in the storytelling department compared to Fallout. And while focusing on a tighter, more claustrophobic setting, it really sets the mood, making for an almost horror survival, which this genre loves. For the next video, I'm going to continue to head off and try some other post-apocalyptic settings. In fact, if you have a keen ear, you may have already picked up on where we're heading next. Anyone keen for a roadside picnic? I want to give a massive shout out to all the homies over on Patreon and to the channel members. You guys continue to fuel these wacky adventures, and I cannot thank you enough. But to you, the viewer, I want to thank you especially for watching up to this point. And as always, I've been Chris from Crisis Gaming, and I will see you on the next one.